Hello students, I am Partha Chakravarti from Department of Geology, University of Delhi. So today our topic of discussion, it is the sedimentary basins, the different mechanism that basically allows the sedimentary basins to form. Once you go through this topic, you will be able to know that what are the different kinds of sedimentary basin that exist in nature. You will be able to understand what are the mechanisms behind their formation, what are the controls behind the basin fill history, and how the different basins they evolve through time. You will also able to know that what are the different kind of maps that we prepare to know the history of the basin fill. Now coming on to the detail of sedimentary basin, what is a sedimentary basin? It is a morphotectonic depression on the crust of the earth. That basically is a depression that we call the sedimentary basin. The question is that how the depression is formed, but it is very essential to know that how the depression is formed, how it is getting filled, because many of the sedimentary basins that contains the different kind of valuable minerals, including your coal, oil and different kind of metals. And to understand the history of the basin, which will help us to know where the concentration of valuable minerals or oil or coal they are there and how to explore it, how to exploit it. We want to know the history of a basin, the tectonic history of a basin, the tectonic setting of a basin, and then we can conclude that how we can best exploit the economic reserve present within the basin. So with this aim, that we go to this course of the sedimentary basin and discuss that what are the different kinds of sedimentary basins we get in nature. Now there are simple procedures of the sedimentary basin formation. We classify those simple procedures into three different kinds of setting. One is a divergent, one is a compressional, and another is a strike slip, that is neither divergent nor compressional, that is the different kind of setting. Now our present discussion about this basin setting, it will be principally in the light of the plate tectonics. I am not going to the basin classification setting, scheme that was operative when before the plate tectonic scheme, when we talked about the geosynclinal scheme. Earlier people used to believe in the geosynclinal scheme, and the geosynclinal scheme used to tell that there is a myogeosyncline and there is a eugeosyncline, and they are separated from each other by a structure called genticline. Now this earlier thought of the geosynclinal system, that is being replaced by the plate tectonic theory, and then the basins we started talking about in terms of plate tectonics. And when we talk about the plate tectonics, then how the basins we classified. The classification was given by the person Ingersoll. He classified the basins in terms of plate tectonics, and the criteria he followed, that whether the basin is on a continental crust or a oceanic crust, this is number one. Number two, that what kind of process is operating at the plate margin on which the basin is there. Is it a divergent margin, compressional margin or strike slip margin? And number three, how proximal, what is the proximity of the basin to the plate margin. So based on this, there are classification of the basins which are considered the intraplate basins, the divergent basin, the compressional basin and the strike slip basins. Now if we go to the mechanism of the basin formation, we normally divide the mechanism into three different classes. One is a mechanical stretching, number two is a thermal subsidence, and number three, it is a foreland, that is the loading and the subsidence of the basin. Now if you see first I will talk about the mechanical stretching. The mechanical stretching, it essentially we get in a system when you have the mantle plume or any kind of the triple junction that is forming, and there is a mechanical stretching, that is the extension that is operative. Mostly in the extensional domain this is being formed, and the best example is the East African Rift, where we see this kind of extensional event. Now, any extension in a extensional mechanical stretching, that basically we give the mechanical stretching kind of situation. Second, we come to the thermal subsidence. This normally we get in the mid-oceanic ridges where the ocean basins are formed. And as you go away from the mid-oceanic ridges, then the age of the crust which is formed, that increases, and as the age of the crust increases, it gets cools and subsides. So that is the thermal compensation, and this thermal compensation causes the crust to be subsided, and which is very operative in the oceanic crust. Now coming on to the foreland kind of setting. Now what is a foreland? It is because of a load, that is commonly the thrust load. When you put a thrust load on any crust, then there is a subsidence in the crust which is at the front of it, depending on the flexural rigidity of the crust. Now this subsidence within the crust, because of the load, that we call the foreland kind of setting. Now what will be the depth, what will be the dimension of the subsidence, all this depends on the flexural rigidity of the crust which is getting subsided. Now we will go into a little bit detail about the different kind of basin. Now first coming on to the extensional basin. Now if we come into the extensional kind of basin, that normally what we talk about, there are the two kinds of extensional kind of basin, that is the intraplate basin. I am basically talking about the intraplate basin. Now in a intraplate basin which may transform into a interplate setting, this is basically a system where you have the mechanical stretching. Now mechanical stretching, it can be again of two different types. One is the active type stretching, another is a passive type stretching. Now when we call the active type and passive type is that when you have a stretching that is opening a basin in the crust without any involvement of the hotspot, any plume, or any kind of the movement of the mantle flow, but there is a stretching, then you call it a passive kind of stretching. But the active stretching is that where you have the plume movement, you have a hot spot, and then by the movement of the mantle away from that spot, that causes the mechanical stretching in the upper layer, and that is what is called the active stretching. This active stretching, this normally we presently there is no actively stretching basin that we get in our Indian continent, but you get it in the East African continent, you get the actively stretching basins that is there. So this terrestrial rift valleys, which is essentially a extensional setting, there you can get, as I have discussed, that both active and the passive type. But one very important character of that you get the bimodal volcanics in that kind of basins. Now the character of these extensional basins, it can be in the form of a full graben, it can be a half graben, or it can be a Horsten graben kind of situation. I will explain in board what we mean by a half graben. So this is a simplified picture of a half graben. You can see that this is the fault and which has subsided this part, which is the hanging wall part, and this is the footwall part. Now this is a typical kind of, this is the deep slope, that is the hanging wall slope. So the main sediment delivery in this case will be from this side, and some small scale conglomeratic fans that will be generated from this side, that is the footwall side. So we can discuss that this is the typical kind of pattern for a half graben, where you have a steep or scarp that is formed by the footwall and the deep slope that is created by the hanging wall. Normally we get the fluvio-deltaic system that is operative on the hanging wall, whereas a fan delta which can be formed from the footwall side. That is the general character of it. I can also have from this extension we can have a Horsten graben kind of situation. Horst and Graben kind of situation. So these parts are called Horst and this is called Graben. You get the thick sediment succession within the Graben, but you do not get a very thick succession in the Horst. One very important example of this Horst Graben situation is our Bombay High. You all know the huge oil reserve of our Bombay High. And that Bombay High is basically a Horst kind of situation. So these are some of the examples that when we get what are the character of a extensional kind of basin, which is operative when there is active or the passive kind of extension that is going on. We can also have a proto-ocean basin rift trough kind of setting where the basin has a oceanic crust. That means the basin has started opening, that any kind of stretching, that the mechanical stretching, it led to the opening of the basin, that is spreading, but it has not spreaded to the full. So that kind of a basin which started spreading and generated the oceanic crust but didn't evolve into a full scale ocean basin, that we call the proto-oceanic rift trough. The Red Sea is a classical example for that. Now we can also have some basins which are totally intercratonic in nature, that is the sag basins we are talking about. The intercratonic sag basins, that suppose in our in India the Vindhyan, Kadapa, Chhattisgarh, which are a classical example of the intercratonic sag basin, which has normally a quaquaversal dip, and also you get a sagging in the central part. Then that sagging is either related to any kind of the earlier reef setting or the triple point junction or any kind of plume activity that may be hidden below. So the sag basin, it will always show the depocenter in the middle and on all sides that the sediment that will be wedging out. So that is the intercontinental sag basin. Then we also have, then we go to the passive margin basin. Now what is the passive margin basin? It is a transition from the continental to the marine. That is what we call the passive margin basin. That means a mechanical stretching which has started, the stretching that led to the spreading and then the drifting apart. So rift and that the spreading given way to the drift. So the drifting of the continent, that basically is that give rise to the formation of passive margin at the margin of the continent. The classic example is of our country's east coast and west coast. If you see both the east coast and if you see the east coast, what we can see that if you drill at the base, you get the rifts, which is the Gondwana rifts, and that basically is a reason that the coast, how the coast is formed, and then you get the large scale deltas that prograde onto this passive margin setting. So that is very important, that what really is a passive margin setting. Now there are some basins which are very active basins and there are basins which are dormant basins. Classic example is Atlantic and Pacific. If you see, the Atlantic is a ever growing basin because in both the sides of Atlantic you get the passive margin, but Pacific is a ever shrinking basin because on both the sides you get the subduction zone. There are also dormant basins which neither grows and nor it shrinks, it is maintaining. The Gulf of Mexico is a classic example that it is a dormant basin. Now I will come to the discussion of the convergent margin basins. Now there are a number of convergent margin basins. If I go to board and draw, then I can explain you that what are the different convergent margin basins. Here I have drawn a cross section of the trench arc system. You can see this plate is going down, this is the subducting plate, and this plate is called overriding plate. Now, the rate of subduction and the rate of convergence of the overriding plate, that basically controls the entire story here. If the rate of subduction is higher than the rate of convergence of the overlying plate, then the trench that we call, this portion that we call the trench, that will start rolling back, and there will be extension at the back of the magmatic arc, and we will open the back arc. If the rate of subduction, that the rate of subduction rate that is lower than the convergence rate, in that case there will be compression here, and we will not open the back arc, but there will be the retro arc basins. And if the two rates match, that means in that case you have a neutral kind of situation where the trench will remain at the same place and the configuration will be maintained. We call them the neutral arc system. So extensional arc, compressional arc, and the neutral arc. These are the three different situations that can arise by means of the different rate of subduction and the rate of convergence. Now we come on to the different basins that we form in this area. First come on to the trench. It is the morphologic depression, and that basically controls that the plate is subducting through the trench. That is a geophysically identified depression through which the plate is subducting. We also get the trench slope basins, which are structurally formed basins on the accretionary prism, that is the thrusts which are scraped from the downgoing plate and emplaced on the downgoing plate. So as it is subducting, the material scrapped from it, it gets emplaced on it by means of low angle thrust. And the basins which will form between these different thrusts that is emplaced on it, those what we get that the trench slope basins. Now we get the 4-arc basin. This 4-arc basin, that is between the accretionary prism and the magmatic arc. That depression that we call the 4-arc. It is the same because there is I have already discussed that what is called foreland. The foreland, as I discussed, that there is a load, and because of the flexural rigidity, the subsidence in the crust because of the load, that we call the foreland. In arctan setting, it is the same mechanism that forms the 4-arc. So there is a subsidence because of the emplacement, and then that we call it a 4-arc. The main supply of sediment in the 4-arc is from the magmatic arc, and this magmatic arc, the beautiful example of the magmatic arc in our country, that we know the Barren and the Narcondam Islands, which are the magmatic arc. And this magmatic arc that gets operative, our Andaman Islands that represent the accretionary prism, and the Indian plate, it is basically subducting below the Eurasian plate all along the trench, and that subduction has created the accretionary prism, which is represented, that the trench slope basin that is represented by the Andaman Islands. The Andaman Sea that represent the 4-arc setting, and depending on the extension of the compression, we can have the back arc. In the back arc we have the extensional setting, there is a oceanic crust that is formed, or when there is a compression you get the retro arc setting, where there is a thrust belt that operates, that we call it the retro arc setting. And the basins formed on the thrust belt, that we also known as the retro arc basins. So we have discussed the retro arc basins. Now we also discussed the peripheral foreland basin. The peripheral foreland basin, it is basically that when there is a thrust belt, that is, as I discussed earlier also, that there is any subduction, and you have the thrust and then the subsidence. As I discussed that the peripheral foreland, it is the similar that we get in the arctan setting, that is the 4-arc. But when you have a large scale, suppose the Himalayan origin, then the foreland basins. Which are the foreland basins? Even today the entire Gangetic basin is a foreland basin because of the rising Himalaya and the huge load of Himalaya on the Indian crust, then the subsidence of the entire Indian craton, that basically allowed that the foreland basin to form, where the river Ganges that is operating, that is a foreland basin. We also get the foreland in the form of Shivalik, that is also a foreland basin at that time, that when the Himalaya is the early stage, and then the subsidence in the nearby area, that is also a foreland basin. So all these basins, they are the peripheral to the main thrust load, and then you call the subsidence, that is the peripheral foreland basin. Now we also get the piggyback basin. The piggyback basins are those which are within the thrust belt. So basins which are which it is holding within the thrust belt, then you call it a piggyback basin. And there are some basins which we call the remnant basins. These are the basins which remained as a remnant when there is a continent-continent collision, continent-arc collision. So the basins that remain as a remnant within that system, suppose of the Bay of Bengal, that is a remnant basin. So all these basins that is a part of the compressional setting that we have discussed in this. Now we come on to the strike slip setting. In the strike slip setting, there are three different kinds of setting. That one is a transtensional basin, one is the transpressional basin, and transrotational basin. Now the transtensional basin, then you get the basin, there is a fault bounded basin. This is a very the basins are it subsides very easily, and there is a large scale subsidence, the geothermal gradient is high, and they are fault and the extensional margin on the two sides. Now there are basins which are transpressional, where the compressional forces are operative on that basin. But when there is a block rotation about a axis and that forms a basin, then we call it a transrotational basin. So all these basins, they remain part of the strike slip basin. So if I go to board and draw a strike slip basin, then it will be more easier. A simplified geometry of a strike slip basin, where you can see that these are the two faults and they are in a strike slip form, and on the other side you get the compression on the two other margins of the basin. So you can develop some basins that are basically by extension, and there are some basins which may form by compression. So both the actions that is operative, it is a very quickly subsiding basin, geothermal gradient often becomes very high, and this is a very good kind of situation for any kind of stratigraphic trap or any kind of hydrocarbon reserve that may be formed. Now there are some basins which are hybrid in nature. Now hybrid basins, they are of different type. Suppose we can have a Olacogen, that is a hybrid basin. We can also have the intercontinental range basin, we can have the Impactogen basin, and then there may be successor basin. In case of Olacogen, it is a failed rift, that the one rift which couldn't open, the two other limbs of the triple junction that is opened in form of a open basin, but the other limb cannot open. Our Cambay, Gulf of Cambay is a classic example that shows a kind of Olacogen. It will be more spreaded, more wide towards the sea and become narrow towards the continent. That is the kind of situation in a Olacogen. Now if you go to the intercontinental range basin, this is a basin that formed on continental crust, and it is affected by any distant the collisional origin or the collisional process, and that affects and it forms in the continental basin. The Impactogen, it forms at a high angle to the orogenic belt. That is the basic nature of a Impactogen. So a successor basin is that when it is formed in a intermontane setting after the end of the taptogenic activity, then we call it a successor basin. Now what are the different kinds of map that we prepare to know the history of a basin? We prepare different kinds of maps. Suppose we prepare the isopac map, that is the equal thickness map. That means the same lithology strata, what are the equal thickness of that strata in different part of the basin, that is on the map. When we represent, then we call it a isopac map. We also prepare the worm's eye view map, which is proposed by Mial, that on a unconformity, what is the on-lap history of a basin, that on-lap history that is mapped, and that we call the worm's eye view map. We also prepared the paleogeographic map, that is the facies map in the space domain, how the different facies that are there in the space domain in a basin, that is also get mapped. We also do different kind of ratio map, such as a sand is to shell ratio map, then the clastic to carbonate ratio map. So all these maps, why we do this kind of map? These maps allow us to interpret what is the facies distribution, where is the depot center, and how the different the strata and the sediment they are distributed throughout the basin of the different tectonic history. To know that, we generate the different kinds of map. We also discuss the lithofacies map. The lithofacies map that also allows us to know that what are the facies types that formed in the different kinds of setting. Now, there are two different kinds of cross sections that also we do. One is a master cross section, another is a stratigraphic cross section. In a master cross section, what we do, that we make a cross section on the surface depending on the unconformity. So we will get the different field history, the different field history and different geological features that is there in the basin. Whereas when you talk about the stratigraphic cross section, then there is a time connotation associated with that. The time is associated with the different kind of lithology what we get, and how the time and the lithology distribution in a time domain that can be explained, that we call it the stratigraphic map of the area. In eText, you will see that in a tabular form, all the basins that is categorized in different kind of tectonic setting and what are the features, that is the characteristic or the telltale feature to identify that kind of basin, that has been given in a tabular form in the eText, where what I have discussed in this, that has been categorized, and the tectonic history, the basin and their character, that is been clearly explained in a tabular form in the table. Now, what I have discussed, if I summarize this, that we get, the basin is a morphotectonic depression on the earth crust. Now that can be done by different kind of process. Some are mechanical process, some are thermal process, and some are the process related to loading on the crust and the subsidence of the crust because of the flexural rigidity. When we talk about the stretching can be passive or active. It can be related to a plume activity, it can be related to a triple point junction, it may not be related to that. And we get the different kind of graben situation, hub graben situation, Hodgson graben situation, and depending on that, some basins they may be ever growing, some basin may be shrinking, and all this depends that what kind of plate tectonic setting that is demarcating that basin. As we have already discussed, that Atlantic is a ever growing basin, Pacific is a ever shrinking basin. We also get the arc trench situation and the different kinds of basin that is formed, that is we have discussed the trench slope, forward arc, back arc, retro arc, piggyback, all these different kinds of basins that can form in an arc trench setting. We also get the strike slip situation, and we have discussed that there is a transtension, there is a transpression and the transrotation. So all these basins, that is the different kind of behavior of the basin. We also discuss the different kinds of maps that we prepare, and those maps how they help, that the type of map, the isopac map, isolith map, the paleofacies map, the ratio map, the warm eye view map. So all these maps that help us to know that how the basin filling history that has gone in the space-time domain. So I understand that this will help you in understanding that basins can be of different type, and they are dependent on the different kind of tectonic history at the different type of tectonic margin or the plate margin, and that will encourage you to go for the further literature and know that the basins of different tectonic margin, how they form, how they behave, how they evolve, and how they ultimately close. So it is a history like a human being that a basin has. It forms, it evolves, and then it closes. So this will encourage you to know better and more by going to the further literature, which is also mentioned in the eText, to know better about these basins and their histories. Now, I believe you have enjoyed this course, and thank you.